So, New World just got a new expansion. It's trying to fix a lot of the issues we got with the game back at launch. Trying to reposition itself into the big MMO we all thought it would be. The first next generation MMO. But does the new expansion achieve this? Well, let's talk about it. Let's see if they actually were able to pull themselves up. They're not that good launch and, got an actual good game. I'll judge this expansion in this different criteria. New player experience, story, mounts, bugs, because there were a lot of them, gearing, PvE Endgame, PvP Endgame, crafting, open world, and fashion. After I end all of these points, I will rate each of them to see how well the expansion deals with them, and will rate the game with a score as well. And tell you if I think you should try the game or not. Let's start with my new player experience. I already had a level 60, so I just was planning to start and go to the main quest to be able to blast the questline as fast as I could, so I could get to the end game and of course, make this review. But I couldn't find the main quest. The only thing that the game was directing me to was the mount quest, which honestly seemed okay, so I went and did that. It was a very simple quest. You just have to collect some stuff, bring into the horse, and then your horse becomes your friend and you can ride it, right? Then it gave me a tutorial to equip different things to essentially enhance my mount and give food to my horse, which essentially gave me more experience for my riding skill, which eventually would provide me with more items and a bit of perks that makes me go faster and stuff like this, right? The equipment was actually pretty cool. You could decorate your horse and you could actually put some items that would give you boosts in different parts of the world. For example, if you go into the roads that New World has, it actually made you faster. It also gives you this equipment that if you got off your mount by some other enemy destroying it, you would get certain buffs like fortify, more health, or a bit of speed or whatever, right? And you could choose and pick which ones to use, which actually was pretty cool. The mounts were very simple, at least for now. You only have a dash button and a jump button. And that was it, honestly. You could jump, and when you jump, you lose some stamina, which honestly I'm not a very big fan of. It makes me not want to jump ever, and honestly, everyone loves jumping on your mounts, don't we? I think we do. So honestly, I don't think it's a good thing that it works that way. But after this, I was asked to use my mount to do a few mount races. They essentially just were like, go from one point to the other with little checkpoints in the middle, right? And the first one was very simple. But I thought, well, it will be more interesting later, right? Well, I was completely wrong. They were all the same. A few of them were like, oh, you go to this little, course and you have to get the little checkpoints every 30 seconds, which were not that bad, but they were not that interesting either. You had no boosts. You had no real shortcuts either, or obstacles. It was just, walk in a straight line, then sometimes turn around and go somewhere else. It was very easy. And the worst part is that there were other ones, which were the majority, by the way, where it was just go from this part of the map to this other part of the map. You have 5 minutes. And you had to make it in it was actually kind of tight. You would end up like at 4 minutes and 40 seconds. It was not very fun. There was no obstacles. You could AFK it on the roads because the horse would essentially like walk towards the road and kind of know where to go. You only had to press the dash button. It was very, very boring. And it was actually pretty bad. At this point, honestly, I already wanted to not play the game anymore. The races were never ending, and just when I finished the first set of the game, it gave me another one. Another set of more races that I didn't want to do. So I was like, oof. Like, I wanted to just stop playing at that point. Now, I wanted to continue because I wanted to do this review, so I kept going. And of course, I had the impression that this needed to be done to continue the expansion, which I was actually wrong about. I didn't know at this point, but the game makes you this quest in order to unlock the other mounts and level up your riding skill. This was not part of the main quest line. After this, I started to wonder, well, is this really the main quest line? So I started searching in Google and other places, wikis and streams, to find what I had to do. I ended up realizing the mount quest is not required to do the start main quest line, but it also doesn't tell me where the actual questline is. I couldn't find any information on it. So I was like 1+ hour into the game and getting very frustrated, and I just wanted to go and do the expansion. I ended up going into the new zone thinking maybe that will make the main quest pop up and I'll know where to go. And actually, when I got into the new zone, I got killed, and it told me, in order to get to this part of the world, you have to do this questline in this place. I was like, okay, cool. Finally, I know where to go. Because honestly, before that, I couldn't know. It didn't show me in the map. I don't know if it was a bug or I was literally blind or they had too many quests that had this similar symbol to them, so I just didn't know where to go. But that's what happened, right? I started a new quest line. Everything went right. I got some issues with my mount not being able to climb a 5 centimeter step, but I made it to the expansion zone. Beautiful zone, absolutely breathtaking. How the trees and huge flowers envelop everything in the old zone. Honestly, it was just beautiful. Very, very cool. New World has always had very, very cool visuals, so of course they would do this very well. I started doing the questline and the voice actors were great, but what they said, it was very boring, and I didn't really care 90% of the time about them or honestly the overall story. It also doesn't help that every story step was talking to an NPC, doing a fetch quest, or kill some mobs that honestly you were getting killed by everyone and you could not get any tags on them because, well, it was the start of the expansion, so it was very, very hard to do it. So it didn't make it more interesting, to be honest, at all. It is very funny though that the expansion does a lot of Guild Wars 2 wink moments because the expansion is very similar to Heart of Thorns. They have plant zombies, you have blinding pods, and you have a literal NPC called Traherne, which is a very, very important character in that expansion in Guild Wars 2. So I wonder if some of the ex-ANET devs just did that on purpose to do a little wink-wink to the Guild Wars 2 community if they play the game, which is pretty funny. I continued with the questline with very repeatable content and encountered this weird event. It looked like a Guild Wars 2 event, but it didn't really tell me where to go, and it kind of did tell me what to do, which enemies to kill, but I didn't know where they were. And also when each of the steps of the event wouldn't really progress like it would tell me that it moved to the next step, but it wouldn't give me anything each time that happened. And even when it ended, it didn't tell me it didn't actually tell me what I got, right? It was like nothing, right? Like it really it was so weird. But yeah. Not really. I think they just wanted to like try and make the event system that Guild Wars 2 or honestly now WoW has, but they didn't really put a lot of effort into it. So it just became very weird, and it didn't help that everyone just spamming the ads because they were trying to do the expansion there, and you didn't know what the fuck was happening. It might be bugged and maybe it's fixed now, but it was not very good. And even if it was fixed, there were not very, very cool events. It was just kill some stuff and that was it, right? It's not that good. I think you have to blow our little horn as well, but that's not that interesting either, right? The leveling experience so far was very boring, and it continued to be the same every time. There were some cool characters, like, minor spoiler here, the Tauren guy was very, very cool. He's like a badass who just wants to, he wants to unite the gods and kill the, well, because you told him, but yeah, and destroy this plant girl that is trying to make everyone a zombie. But he was very cool. He was very badass, and I kind of like him, right? And the survival guy who just wants to, he just likes killing plants and surviving the forest, and he just doesn't give a fuck, and is very charismatic. Oh, I love that guy. Honestly, it was very cool. I don't like the fact that, although, spoilers by the way, that the Tauros got kind of deleted. Like they made him do something very, very stupid. He just started into a Medusa, even though he knew, like, we know that this Medusa could, like, make you into stone, and he just kind of died. Well, he didn't really die, but he was unable to do anything for the whole fight just because of that. It was like no reason to do that, and they ruined a kind of a cool character, right? Their story continues, and there were some cool bosses on instances, but they were not that good. They were just fine. They were fine instances. Spoilers for the end of the story, but it also didn't make a lot of sense. We spent the whole expansion talking about, like, oh, this evil plant woman is trying to make everyone plant zombies, but then she's like, but guys, you just don't know that I'm actually doing it for this very good reason, because we need to defeat this other guys, and you should be on my team. It's like, why didn't you tell us that though? If you really wanted to do that, why did you just kill a lot of people, all that, like, and essentially trick literal gods to be against you for no reason? It was so fucking stupid, but whatever. At least it foreshadows some cool stuff for the next patch, which, who knows, maybe it fixes the story and makes it a bit more interesting, but I didn't really like the story at all. You end up with a moment, you end the expansion with a moment of recovering with your allies. That is pretty common in MMOs, and talking to them one last time. But honestly, I didn't know who these people were. I had no idea. Like, I mean, no, I knew who they were because I interacted with them, but I didn't care. I don't care. I didn't care about any of these characters. The only ones that I care about were the ones that are very charismatic, and I found that very fun. But any of the other ones, I don't care about them at all. I didn't care about the Hearn. I didn't care about the other 3 people that can't even remember the name. The only people I care about was Taurus because he was badass, and the survival guy because he was just funny. That was the only reason, which is not good. So honestly, story is not very good. The leveling was not very good. So if you're a player that really cares about that kind of stuff, I would really not recommend this game at all. For the mounts, we have talked about it a little bit, but overall they're not that good. They look and sound very cool. They do work like real lions, real horses, and real wolves, but they're not that much fun. They're just mounts. You dash with them, you jump with them, that's it. It's not something like in Guild Wars 2 where every one of them does a different thing and you can explore the world in different ways with each of them. Or the dragon flying in WoW, which goes very, very fast and it's very, very fun to maneuver with it because you feel very overpowered. It's just a dash button. And it had a lot of bugs when it came out. You would get stuck in the ground multiple times in many, many ways and many, many places. So it definitely didn't help. The equipments are kind of cool. And there's definitely, but even those ones, they're not that good. There's only one that I really like, is the one that really makes you go very, very fast in the roads, because that way sometimes in the races you're like, even though they're very bad races, there's one of them actually that I just need to do right now, that you have to go from one side of the map, the entire world map, to the other one, and it takes 20 minutes. 20 minutes with 2 checkpoints, the start one and the end one. Why would you do that? Honestly, you know what? I'll give it this. Maybe one race this way would have been fun. It's like, oh my god, this is like insane travesty that you have to go and cross the whole map in 20 minutes. Cool. But they repeated it so many times. There's another one that I have to do with 50 minutes, and there were so many with 5 minutes. I would have to go from one point to the other for no reason. The only thing I would say is that it's kind of cool to do it with the booster equipment that you get, and essentially every time you go into the road, you get an insane boost. And when you're off the road, you don't get the insane boost. So sometimes you're like, should I take the shortcut or should I just keep going with the road? And that kind of decision is kind of cool. At the end of the day, the equipment things, the abilities that you get on your mounts should be impactful enough that it makes you take some decisions on whether you should go one way or the other, or make you feel a bit more powerful, make you feel a bit faster. It just seems like the end mounts end up feeling very much like you're just walking faster, and that's not how it should work. You can fix this, by the way, by doing the equipments, the objects for the that you can equip on the mounts way more impactful. Maybe some of them make you jump faster. Maybe some of them give you a little boost every time you press shift. It's just a little boom, right, or whatever. There's so many things you can do, right? Or you can also lean in the way that Guild Wars 2 does it, where the wolf does something very differently than the lion and the horse. For example, maybe the horse goes faster in a straight line. Maybe the wolf jumps very, very fast. Very, very high, right? And maybe the lion does little boosts instead of like going in a straight line, or maybe it's like every time it goes around, instead of going straight, it goes faster. So you have different gameplay on each of them, and it makes it way more interesting, other than just being a skin, and way more fun, honestly, because it makes you feel like, you know, you're actually engaging with the world in a very different way. I understand that not every game has to be like Guild Wars 2 and WoW, but the New World has to carve out their way of doing it. Bugs. There were an insane amount of bugs. It was insane. Guild Wars 2 is a buggy game, but holy fuck, I was fucking surprised. I couldn't believe it. The expansion was insanely buggy. The mounts were buggy. They would clip in, I already mentioned it, they were clipped in the fucking floor. They couldn't jump over little hoops. It was completely a disaster. They sometimes would go like T-pose and just like glide over like everywhere. It was insane. The quests were so buggy as well. Some of them didn't work. Some of them you couldn't really pick up the items to get them because everyone was camping them, and because it's an expansion, everyone's trying to get them. So the people literally did a queue, a line to be able to get the items. One person would go get the item, it would respawn 3 minutes after, and then the next person would go. It was insane. Talking to NPCs would also bug. You would like talk to them in the story, and they would, like, instead of focusing their face, they would go to their torso, and they were like talking. It's supposed to be epic, and it's like nothing. It's just like you're talking to a torso. It was just funny and take you out of the game very hard. Season pass didn't work. The alliance quest didn't work. And some bosses didn't even spawn, which was very bad for gearing. So they did fix a lot of these things, to be fair, guys. So let's be fair. They did fix them a lot, but dude, it was honestly insane that they have so many bugs in a game that just released 2 years ago. Like, Jesus Christ, how is this possible? Gearing. The game has a lot of stats and customizations to make your build, so gearing is very, very fun. Now we also got the artifacts, which are essentially items with special abilities to make your builds even stronger, and sometimes they even make the build. It's actually very fun. All of this makes the process of getting gear very fun, as you are always getting items to make one build or another. You do get a lot of, maybe you get too many pieces of gear and you have like an insanely big bag with all the possibilities you could get, but I don't think it's that horrible. I think it's fine. You can also gear with any content you like. You can do PvP, you can do PvE, you can do open world bosses, you can do crafting, you can do anything, which is very, very cool. Some of them are better than others. I'm pretty sure crafting is a bit too expensive right now, but you can do whatever you want. And although, to be fair, with the exceptions of artifacts, which you actually have to do specific types of content in order to do them. But I understand this because you want your players to be incentivized to go to other places and to do other types of content. So I think it's fine. The only two things I wouldn't like is that you have to level up your weapons. And whenever you want to try a new build, it sucks that you're like, oh fuck, I got to level up this whole weapon to level 20 instead of being able to trade this to get this build. And the equipment templates are not that good. You have to buy them as well. And oh my god, this is I actually hate this. The gem slots, oof, that is horrible. Because essentially each of the dungeons, each of the weeks have a different type of damage that they do. Some do fire, some do ice, some do poison, whatever. And you need the gems for each of them to have a resistance for those dungeons. And each week you have to change them. Now to buy them again, put in your slots of your gear, and do it. And essentially, you know, do the whole week in order to do these dungeons, right? It really sucks because they're very expensive. I guess it's only once a week, so it's really that big of a deal. But also there's 2 dungeons each week that are like mutated. So I don't even even if I buy that, because if I want to do the other one, I'm essentially incentivized to only do one of the 2 dungeons instead of doing both and one and the other and one and the other. Because each time I want to change, I'm gonna have to fucking change my gems, which are pretty expensive. So I don't really like that. I think it's very boring and it kind of sucks. I understand that you want the game to have sinks, sinks for gold and crafting, all those things, right? You want the economy moving, but I don't think the way of doing that is essentially forcing us to put gems on each of the slots each week. And honestly, if you want to do PvP, it's even worse, because then you have to get gems for PvP as well. If you're a PvEx gamer, if you're a PvX gamer which likes to do PvP, open world PvP with a lot of people, and PvE, it's just not. Honestly, it's not a very good game in that regard. PvE Endgame. Honestly, I think New World really outdone themselves here. Their dungeons are beautiful, very epic, and they have found a way to do hard content, which is actually not that easy, specifically for the fact that their combat is very, very different than any other MMO. They also have accessible easy mode dungeons as well, while having very difficult ones, which is also very hard. The slope to learn is actually pretty good in my opinion, because I suck at this game and I was actually I wasn't having a lot of issues, because the combat is simple, but you have to, you still have to know what you have to do. So it's like, I think it is kind of like easy to learn, hard to master, which is kind of what you want, right? I'll definitely say that the combat sometimes feels a bit laggy and spammy, but with the bosses getting harder and harder, it becomes less so, especially in the dungeons. I think honestly the lag happens more in PvP and other places, not as much in the dungeons. And honestly, it feels almost like I'm playing a Dark Souls MMO, which is exactly what I wanted for a long time and what I wanted from New World. So I'm actually kind of happy with it. It definitely has some issues with lag and stuff, but I hope that they can finally end up fixing that eventually. It definitely doesn't have to seem as hard content as something like WoW or Final Fantasy XIV, but I'm very happy that they found their niche, their way of making content, and I'm excited to see what they do next. The raid, the Worm raid, for example, looks very cool and is very original in the way they do stuff, so I'm happy with it. PvE Endgame. These are just QPP games where you fight people in deathmatch 3v3. It's actually pretty fun. It's kind of interesting. It feels a bit scuffed sometimes, because sometimes you hit something and you hit someone and you're like, man, why didn't that hit? I saw in my screen that it hit and it didn't. And sometimes you feel like you dodged something and it didn't. You got hit anyways. And that can be very frustrating sometimes, which kind of sucks. This is also made worse by the fact. Oh wait, yeah. This is also made worse by the fact that in the arena that we're playing right now, you don't have a place to kite. You end up having a lot of 3v3s. So like just a clusterfuck of 6 people fighting each other in a bowl instead of 1 2v2 and 1 1v1 on the other side. You can definitely, the better you get, this happens the less. But it is very, I don't like that at all. And it becomes very, the lag problem becomes way worse, honestly. Way worse. It really sucks also that the maps don't rotate every match, but every season. It makes it very better and not fun, and honestly, in my opinion, the sand map is way superior, because you have places to kite in. This one is just an arena, flat arena, with some pillars that you can kite with, but it's way easier to get the 6 people just in a ball hitting each other, instead of like, a few, just kiting around and dodging and doing damage while you're moving. It's way better in the sand arena, and it shows that it doesn't change every map. Honestly, I don't know why. Every match, I don't know why they do that. The rewards are good though, and now that you can pick them when you reach a new goal. You can essentially pick one of the 3 options each time you get to a little, a reward track, which is pretty cool. Influence races. These are absolutely great. This essentially is a 40 versus 40 versus 40 big fights where you have to capture 1 points in the open world. And because of course the open world has a lot of environments and little trees and rocks and everything, it becomes very cool, and you actually have to engage with the environment a lot, and this will essentially create little skirmishes that happen instead of just being a big blob that hits each other. That definitely happens sometimes, which is sometimes people do like that, but there's also a little bit of skirmishes and little 1v1s or 3v3s that happen on the sides, which I think it works pretty well. And I'm kind of happy that they made a way to use the world that New World has, that was essentially designed to be for PvP, and now people don't do it because no one opts in, but now they found a way to actually integrate it with influencer races, because you get incentivized to do PvP in these zones at this time of the day. I think it's a very cool, and of course you help your faction, you give them gold for them to beat the other faction, and honestly that feels very cool, that that you're helping your side of the team. I think it's very fun gameplay, and it works out pretty well. Outpost Rush is essentially the instance version of the influence races, although it happened before. This one, I'm not as much of a fan of it. It's essentially the same as influence races, but instead it's at 20 versus 20, and it's the same map every time. In this game mode, there are 3 bases, one of each, 1 base for each team, and 1 in the middle as a contested area. That being said, you can capture each of the 3. The bases are just closer to the respective team's spawn points. There are also a good amount of objectives that are powerful, like one of the freezes the enemy's ability to gain points. You can also gather resources to make your base stronger, so it's easier to capture, or buy monsters to help you attack the enemy. This all sounds great, right? But every time I played it, it just ends up being just one team attacks the other one. The other team, one of the teams dies. The other team pushes. It pushes until one of them wins the game, and that's it. There's not a lot of, you go to this objective, you go to this objective, you go gather some stuff, so you can upgrade this part of the siege or whatever. Nothing that happens, that doesn't really happen, at least for what I've played. Maybe this is just this season, maybe it's because I've only played with new players, maybe in a few weeks I'll play with people who actually know what they're doing, and this won't happen, but for me, it was not really, for what I've seen, it doesn't really look very interesting. It's just like a fight with 2 blobs, and also it ends up being this weird thing with 90% of the participants essentially attacking in 1 or 2 points when where everyone is killing each other for the whole match until someone wins. So it's not really, especially those gates like get an insane amount of damage and AoE in just 1 point, and you get in there and you just completely die, and it's just a clusterfuck, and I don't like it at all. Wars are actually pretty cool, and they're essentially a big 50 versus 50 instance PvP fights, and they seem very fun, but also very complicated, which is nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. It seems to be the end game for guilds, because essentially they challenge each other for these forts that they want, and they'll get a big rewards if they win, and it's very coordinated. So I actually find it very cool. I haven't done it because it seems very hard to get into, and you have to essentially make your build exactly for that, and you have to get accepted to a guild to do it and everything. But I definitely plan to gear up and try it eventually, so maybe I'll do a little bit of a second video reviewing wars, so maybe compare them to what Guild Wars 2 and World vs. World does. I don't know, we'll see. Crafting. The gathering and crafting this game has always been very good. It's been very fun. You can craft a lot of items that people do need because of what we said before. There's a lot of consumables you want to need to do the content, and gathering in this game feels awesome. It's very, it's very cool to cut trees, to mine rocks, to do everything and run around the world doing this. I guess using the mounts now, it's even faster and even better. But honestly, it's cool. The only thing I would say that's kind of bad, maybe the bags are, honestly, there's too many items. I have no idea like how to even start understanding the systems. It's so much, and they fill up your bags, of course. I guess it's more of a problem of MMOs, to be honest, so I shouldn't criticize this too much. But I will say that apparently the crafting for gear is not as good right now. It's a bit too expensive, so I guess that one kind of sucks. I'm sure they'll change it eventually, but... Then we have open world. Open world, honestly, it's been a fucking ride. I found it so fun. The chest runs, which is essentially little jumping puzzles that you go around to get little chests that give you a lot of gear and materials, and everyone's going through them, and everyone's, and at the same time, there are wall bosses at the same close to them that people are farming. So you're doing the chest run, you're doing the wall bosses with everyone there. It feels like an MMO because everyone's just hanging out together, doing everything together. It's just awesome, honestly. They're talking to each other because you have voice chat integrated into the game, and proximity voice chat at that, so it's very, very fun. Honestly, I think it's been great. Maybe the open world bosses are not that fun, they're not that engaging, you just explode, but honestly, who cares? It's still fun, and I think it's good. I think it's great. I would wish one day they do something in Guild Wars 2, like with metas, big events, that lead up to a big boss at the end that actually is kind of hard, but I guess we'll have to see that for the next expansion, shall we? Now, here's one of the things that I really don't like to say. Fashion is honestly the worst I've seen in any MMO ever, okay? It is honestly horrible, okay? It is horrible. Not because the skins are bad, and because the gem store, or the store has a lot of them, but because they have this system where you, in order to transmog, in order to change your skin from something to another thing, you have to unlock, not only get the item, but you also have, oh my god, you also have to use a transmutation token. Now, the transmutation token, in order to unlock the skin, can only be got by doing chest runs, by collecting skins, collecting chests. And you guys know how many you can get a week, guys? One transport token a week, and there are hundreds, maybe even more than 1,000 skins in the game, so it would take you an insane amount of time to get all of them to actually unlock all of the skins. Now, there's something missing here, and that is that, of course, if you want more transmutation tokens than one a week, yes, you can buy them in the store. Oh my god, I never would have thought about that. Absolutely horrible. I found it so... they literally ruined everything on fashion in this game because of this. I found it horrible, and I understand the companies to make money. I get it. But don't ruin a complete, entire part of the game because of your need to make money. I understand they also get 5 out of the free pass, and you can buy the battle pass, but even that doesn't give you enough to actually unlock everything. Let's be real. I actually wouldn't even hate the fact that this was a system if it was not paid. Instead, you would have to farm for these tokens, because that would mean that you actually have to farm in order to do fashion, which is actually kind of, and you can have repeatable content. That's a good way of rewarding people for doing content in the game. I found that very, very cool. That would have been cool. And it would actually make the skins that you get way more meaningful, to be honest. But that's not how it works, and that sucks. And I don't like it. But there you go. Let's talk about monetization as well. We already kind of shit on it a little bit. The skins aren't, they definitely, the game has some skins that you can buy from the store, which is honestly fair. I think it's a game that doesn't have a subscription. There's nothing wrong with that. You do have to buy the expansion and the game, but you also have a battle pass. So it's none of these things really make me very mad or whatever. But when you have the transmode token, when you have the battle pass, when you have to buy the expansions, when you also have the store, all of these things together, it's, in my opinion, maybe a bit too much. I would just have to lead. Honestly, if it was only the gem store, the store for skins, the buying the game, and the battle pass, I would probably be okay with it, honestly. I think it would be fine. But the transmode token pushes over the edge. It pushes it over the edge. Honestly, the free passes, the free pass battle pass doesn't even. It does give you some cool stuff, and it's actually kind of fun to progress. So I'm not gonna say that it's like the worst thing ever, but it is a bit too much. I think it's a bit too heavily monetized. I don't think it's yeah. It's mainly because of the transmode token. It just seems greedy, and I know that they need to make money, and the game hasn't done that well for a long time, but I hope that this game does do well enough that they can remove that out of the game, because I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's good. Although I will say, this is a bit questionable. They do have some gear. I know you can get the gear from somewhere else, but there's some gear that you can get from the battle pass that is there and you can just get it, right? I don't think any of them it's needed. It's just a little bit. I think that you can makes the game be a bit easier to gear up if you buy the battle pass, but I don't think it should be there. It's a bit scary. Maybe one day we will get something that is only in the battle pass that you need to make your build, which would be very, very unfortunate. I hope that doesn't happen, but I would not, considering everything, I would not be surprised if it does. But let's go to the conclusion of the game. For new player experience, I would say the game has honestly a 4 out of 10. Not very good, very confusing, and the questing storyline, the questing is not very fun, so not very good. For story, a 4 out of 10 as well. I think it was very boring, not very engaging. I didn't really care. It didn't make me care about the MMO world at all. Maybe it gets better. At least I think I was gonna give it a 3 out of 10, but it did give me some, hope for the future and know what's gonna happen next. They did really set up pretty well that something else is gonna happen later. So I'll accept this. Mounts. Honestly, mounts, I think I'll give it a 5 out of 10. They're not that good. They're not fun. They have a lot of potential, but the potential is not there. I would give them worse because honestly it's just a dash button. So I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. It's not that good. I hope that they do make it way more fun, and honestly the races as well. I will say though, I forgot to mention this, the races that are inside of the labyrinths, I think those were pretty cool because you actually have to jump around and you know where to go. It actually worked out pretty well for what the New World wanted to do with their mounts. So that one were pretty cool. Do more of those, right? Sure, do those more. Bugs, honestly, a 3 out of 10 again. They had way too many. It was fucking embarrassing. They did fix all of them. So you know what? Let's move to 4 out of 10 because they did fix all of them. Most of them at least. I just hope that the next time they do an expansion, they don't have so many bugs. It was honestly too much. Gearing, honestly, an 8 out of 10. It's been very fun to do it. They have some things that are kind of annoying to do, but it's been very, very fun. You do feel more powerful when you... Oh, I guess you don't feel that much powerful, but you do care about gearing up and getting... more power and making your game, your class, your build work. So I think that's been pretty cool. PvE Endgame, an 8 out of 10 as well. Very, very cool. I like the difficulty settings. I like the expeditions. I think they're very cool. We only get one this expansion, which is actually kind of sad, but it was great. The music was great in the game as well. I think it was good. I think the dungeons were awesome, and the bosses are cool. The mobs are cool. The places is cool. Everything about it is very, very good. I think the only thing that breaks it down a little bit is that maybe we should have more difficulty settings, and the combat also sometimes feels a bit clunky, and that can make it a bit bring it down a notch on how perfect the experience feels. PvP Endgame, also I think that one would be like probably a 6 out of 10 because I'll give it a 7 out of 10. It's very clunky sometimes, but people in New World do like it. And honestly, if you don't like a little bit of clunkiness in this game, you're not gonna enjoy it anyway. So if you like New World, you're gonna like the PvP. It's set up pretty well. I think it could be way better if it wasn't for the outpost rush problems that I've had, and the fact that you can't rechange the arenas from the PvP 3 versus 3 arena, which is very not good in my opinion. But crafting, 9 out of 10. The crafting in New World has always been very, very good. The only thing I would say is that, as I said, right now, it's not very good to craft armor and gear. Apparently, it's kind of expensive, so I'll not give it a 10 out of 10. But crafting in New World has always been great, and it shows, and it's still great. Open World, a 9 out of 10 as well. I've been very, very happy with what you do in this game. It's very, very original. and it's optional too. And because of the output of the fact that voice proximity exists in the game, it also makes it way more fun as well. Fashion, a 2 out of 10. Ugh, it ruins the whole vibe of the game for me. Absolutely not like it at all. It like the monetization part of it, it just completely destroys it, and it really makes me not want to invest a lot in this game. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, so not good. Monetization, honestly, a 4.5 out of 10. Let's put that one in. Honestly, it in some ways is good, in some ways it's very bad, and well, it ruined fashion for me. So there you go. I already explained everything, but overall, the whole expansion and the game right now, I'll probably give it a 6 out of 10. It has some good stuff, it has some bad stuff. Gonna have to, depending on what you want as a gamer, as an MMO player, to see if you actually want to buy the game or not. But overall, I think this expansion made the game way better, and I'm kind of happy that it did, because I really like this game, and I hope that one day it fixes all these problems and becomes one of, a light, a star in the MMO future that we can all see and be like, wow, we want to be like New World. We want to be like those guys that had a horrible launch and made a good game out of it. So tell me what you guys think. Tell me if you disagree with anything I've said. Subscribe to the channel, and see you soon. Bye bye.